So can I invite Alex to come on down, as they used to say in game shows?
Well,
we've got people from Mull. They're not all constituents.
Oh, right, okay, good. Well, I was going to say, standing here, it reminded me of... who here remembers Michael Howard, the former Conservative Home Secretary? Right? There was you remember him? Yeah. There was a moment he went to HMP Wormwood Scrubs, and he was told, rather unexpectedly, that he was going to have to speak to all the prisoners. And he didn't quite know how to begin his speech, and he looked down at them, and they looked up at him, and the first thing that came into his head was, "I'm delighted to see you all here." And that just sort of came into my head. But look, I want to begin, if I may, with a thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak. And thank you also to Nick, to Roger, to Tim, and to so many other people who I know have been instrumental in organising this. As the Member of Parliament for Cheltenham, I am really pleased that this is taking place here in the town that I represent. But I will just say this at the outset. My being here is not without controversy. This is, of course, a very febrile, difficult, intensely political issue. But I wanted to be here because I feel very strongly about the issues that are engaged. But lest my remarks be misinterpreted, let me begin, if I may, by making a point which has been emphasised already, but bears re-emphasis. It is vitally important that in our public discourse we disentangle issues of anti-Semitism with issues of political judgment. Anti-Semitism is an abomination. I find it appalling. I deprecate it in all its forms, and nothing that I say should ever be conflated with that. Second, I just want to make the point again, lest I be misinterpreted, that I believe in the right of the State of Israel to exist. Third thing I want to say, just by way of context for the remarks that I'm about to make. The family that I come from, in case you're interested, probably not terribly, but nearby, my mother, for example, growing up in the 1960s, a completely different view that British people, the mainstream of British people, had towards the Middle East. She went out, she spent time in a kibbutz in the foothills of the Golan Heights, and when the 67 war broke out, as a young idealist, as she sort of felt this romantic attachment to this pioneering nation, she was tempted, and it required her mother to restrain her as she got into the Mini up at Foxcote nearby. She wanted to go out and fight. Such was the sense of her kinship on behalf of that pioneering nation. But things, ladies and gentlemen, have changed. And they, in my view, have changed very dramatically. So in 2009, I myself went to the Middle East. I'm not going to bore you with my war stories of everything that took place out there. But I will just make this point. So the criticism that was made from the back there about Conservative Friends of Palestine, I went out with Conservative Middle East Council, which is an organisation which is far better resourced, I'm bound to say, than either of or any of the other parties, and is intended to set a different perspective, shall we put it, from Conservative Friends of Israel. And I, who went to somebody as a barrister, I hope have a residual and core instinct and belief in justice, people being treated fairly, the rule of law, habeas corpus, no imprisonment without trial, and all these basic tenets that we hold dear in this country. And I was appalled. I was appalled when I went to Ma'ale Adumim, which is an illegal settlement. Not just a legal settlement of a few houses, by the way, an entrenched, established settlement of some 40,000 souls or more that clearly is going absolutely nowhere. I was appalled in 2009 to be there at the time of the attacks on Gaza. And although, of course, every nation has the right to defend itself, the proportionality, or rather the disproportionality of what took place appalled me. I was appalled when I went into Hebron, or Al-Khalil, as it is called, forgive the pronunciation, when I walked close to a settlement, underneath a cage which had to be placed to protect the people walking underneath. And because I'd been mistaken for a Palestinian, bottles were raining down on me. Urine was raining down on me. And what I was witnessing then was unfair and was racism. I was appalled when I saw that a security barrier had been put in place in a way which divided farms, which divided communities, which made settlements and olive groves completely unsustainable. And I was appalled when I saw home demolitions which appeared to be without process. And I went and met Israeli soldiers, the wrong kind of Israeli soldiers perhaps, from breaking the silence. And the stories that they had to tell were alarming. So anti-Semitism is an abomination. But so too is a lack of freedom and a lack of justice. And I want, if I may, just simply to reiterate, far less elegantly, I'm bound to say, far less articulately, the point is that when we talk about democracy, that wraps in with it a belief in justice, the rule of law, the writ of habeas corpus, and to ensure that basic human rights are observed. And so I think it is sobering and appalling that the number of units planned this year in the occupied territories is the highest it's been for 25 years. It's wrong. It's unjust. And so on the issue of the politics, my view is, and I'm probably overreaching myself here, but I think it is curious how the British government can say, and by the way it does, in trenchant terms, that those illegal settlements are an abomination, they are an affront to international justice, they are a threat to peace. It does seem to me to be curious that we do not have a more robust approach in terms of how we trade with companies there. And that's something which I feel dearly too. And the last point I'll leave you with as well is there is a worrying accent that comes from parts of the Israeli establishment. And I've seen that very closely when Sir Alan Duncan, a Minister of State, a senior minister in the FCO, finds out that there are elements that want to, quote, take him down. Now that is an affront to our democracy, it seems to me. So let us never forget that this is about politics. Let us never forget, certainly from my point of view, that I believe in the right of Israel to exist. But I think if we want to be a friend of Israel, we must be frank. We must be robust, and we must ensure also that our views are informed by respect for the human rights and justice of all those living in the Middle East, Palestinians, Jews, and indeed everyone else. That's what I wish to say. Thank you.